Hello and welcome to another video review. This is Mass Effect 3 for PC, Xbox 360, and PlayStation 3. Now, if you've seen my reviews of Mass Effect 1 and 2, you know I quite enjoyed those games, and if you've been watching those Let's Plays, you know that I quite enjoyed doing that as well. And so, when Mass Effect 3 started getting info released, I was simultaneously optimistic about it and very apprehensive. I knew that they could very easily screw it up horribly. And, so every bit of information I saw, I was trying to keep it very minimal spoilers, so I didn't really spoil myself going into this. And it seemed like they were focusing way more on combat, not enough on the role-playing stuff. It seemed like the story and characters had taken a backseat to turning it into Jersey Shore, and I'm like, what is all this crap? On top of that, PC version requires Origin, which is a massive pain. And not only that, but of course Origin basically spies on you. So I hate that particular bit. And they also have Day 1 DLC, which is From Ashes. And that already has gotten a massive amount of hate. And for good reason. I mean, you don't just put in something like this and make it Day 1 DLC. It's just, you don't do it. It's just downright insulting to the fans to do it that way. But anyway, how is the game in reality? Because that's kind of what you have to sift through, all of that negativity to get to what this game actually is. So let's find out. Well, the visuals haven't changed much from Mass Effect 2. The textures are a little bit sharper, modeling's a little bit better. Animations are actually slightly worse, which kind of surprised me. They're a little more jerky, and I know they were going for something a little more fast-paced and trying to get the speed up on everything, but some of the animations just turned out weird, and there's a lot of graphic glitches all over the place. And they still have that incredibly annoying problem of making your characters pull out certain weapons that you don't have equipped for certain cutscenes, and it's like, really? Why did you do this? But apart from that, it's what you expect from basically Mass Effect 2, and those visuals were actually pretty solid. They did do a good job with making the character faces a little bit better in this one, and that's obviously due in no small part to the textures. One thing I don't like, though, they seem to have made the lip-syncing worse in this one. I don't really know why they did that. Maybe it was just an oversight or something, but I don't know. Anyway, visuals are still pretty solid. As for the sound design, it's still overall pretty solid as well. Sound effects seem a little bit weirder this time around. They went for the more sci-fi sounds, so your weapons don't necessarily sound like the actual weapons from Mass Effect 1 and 2. I mean, those were fairly consistent for the most part. In this one, it seems like they've just gone off and made them however they feel like they want them to sound, and it's just kind of like, okay, I can dig it, but you could have told me first here. Music is actually without Jack Wall this time around, and I think it actually kind of suffers for it. They did bring in Clint Mansell, who, if you don't know who he is, he did the soundtrack for Requiem for a Dream, which I actually hate that movie, by the way, but anyway, it did have really good music. Thing is, they went for the more kind of orchestral stuff in this one, as opposed to the stuff we were used to from Mass Effect 1 and 2. And they did reuse some of that music from those two games, but some of the new music doesn't really fit in with Mass Effect very well. And some of it does, and that when it does, it actually fits in very well with it. And I was getting kind of a Blade Runner-esque vibe on some of this. I'm like, yes, I like this vibe. But then on some of it, I'm like, when did this turn into a Michael Bay movie? But anyway, music's still pretty solid overall. It's not quite the same. And then you have the voice acting. All the characters and voice actors from the previous two games return, and they did a great job with their stuff. There are some lines that are delivered a little bit oddly. I don't know why. It's like they read the script wrong or something. I don't know. But it is nice to hear Lance Henriksen's voice as Hackett a lot more in this particular one, so that's kind of pleasant. But other than that, there's one particular issue that I'd like to address. They got Jessica Chobot, who is She's on one of the big gaming sites. I don't remember which one. I think it's IGN. But they got her as a character in this one, and I'm just like, okay, whatever. And they got Freddie Prinze Jr. as one of your squad mates who is with you from the very beginning, James Vega. And I actually thought that that was going to suck. It didn't. It kind of blew my mind. This is the only decent role Freddie Prinze Jr. has ever done. And I'm just looking at him, I thought the character was going to be awful. But he's actually not too bad, and that kind of surprised me. So, yeah. But overall, the voice acting is still very solid. And that leads into, what about the game itself? I'm going to break my normal form and actually talk about gameplay before I talk about the story. And this is basically a one-time only thing, because the story has something that I need to address. But the gameplay has been improved over Mass Effect 2, and they've done this through a combination of bringing back more role-playing elements and actually just improving the combat system from Mass Effect 2. The stuff they brought back was they brought a little bit more choice in your abilities. Basically, your powers can upgrade in multiple ways this time around. They have 2 branching paths, and each time you upgrade your power, you get up to 3 upgrades that are just you don't get a choice. But after the 3rd upgrade, you'll get a choice between, do you want this ability or this ability and this and that and the other thing. And it progresses as you go along, so you get a little bit more choice in that regard. You can now add weapon modifications, stuff like scopes or additional heat sinks, or like, well, not heat sinks, thermal clips, improved heat sinks, stuff like that. All of which does affect how your weapon performs. They did add in more weapon variety this time around as well, so that gives you a little bit more choice as to how you want to play the game. And I mean, it's ranges from stuff that was in Mass Effect 2 and 1A and 2, I should say, including stuff from DLC, which you don't need the DLC from the previous 2 games to actually get that new content. Well, that content in Mass Effect 3, you just find it as you go through the game, which is kind of cool. They also, like, the new stuff they added in all has its own uses. For instance, they added in this new sniper rifle called the Javelin, which can shoot through walls. It's awesome. And you also get like a thermal scope on that one. That's pretty cool. But they did a lot of variety with that. They've added in enemy variety, that, as in there's a lot different types of enemies that will attack you. It's not just your guys who are basically mirrors of the classes in the game. You actually get a lot more Reaper types this time around. And by Reaper types, I mean stuff like stuff that's controlled by the Reapers, you know, husks, and they also added in stuff like cannibals, banshees, and brutes. And I don't want to spoil too much for you there, but the cannibals you'll fight fairly early on, so that's no big deal. They basically are just hulking things that shoot at you and throw grenades at you. And when you drop one of them, the others will actually try to feast on it and actually get more powerful, so that's kind of cool. There's like enemies this time around who have basically riot shields, and you had to shoot either through the little slit in the shield, or you like somehow remove their ability to use that shield and take them out while you're doing that. There's enemy mechs that you have to fight. You can get in a mech if you want to and just storm around and blast things through it. These segments are very rare, but they are there. There are turret segments as well, where you jump in a turret and you just mow the enemy down. So that's kind of cool as well. But the combat system in general, they just improved the cover system and the enemy AI. And that's all they really needed to do. Cover system, you can now seamlessly transition between bits of cover. It's a lot easier to really get an idea of what your character is going to do because they added in little indicators. It's like you have an arrow now that will point to where you're actually going to run when you jump out of cover. You can actually dodge roll now, which is kind of nice. Sprinting, you can basically do it indefinitely now, which is also nice. I didn't like that in Mass Effect 1 and 2, where you had limited sprinting, and it was actually very, very limited. But you actually move a lot faster with it this time around, and that actually helps a lot. Because the normal move speed, they've actually slowed down. So, yeah, it's kind of a trade-off there. And by improving the enemy AI, what I mean is they've added in the enemy's ability to actually flank you, to repair their own stuff, or put up shielding, and they'll throw grenades at you to try to flush you out of cover. So you actually have to maneuver a lot more in this one. And it's actually surprisingly competent AI, because I actually turned the difficulty up when I played this game, and I played it on the hardcore difficulty, which is one step higher than normal, and it was actually really, really hard. I actually had to turn the difficulty down when I tried to finish up the game, because it just got so ridiculous. But anyway, so that's all better. They brought back all the stuff that you'd basically expect from Mass Effect, as in the dialogue system's basically the same way. They brought back the interrupts, like the Paragon and Renegade interrupts. They don't seem very well placed, though, for some reason. I don't know why they did this some ways, but it's just the way they did some of these Renegade interrupts isn't that great. There's very few and far between, and when they do happen, you're just kind of like, well, that was kind of pointless. But anyway, they added in more attempts to be diplomatic as well, as in like using your Paragon or Renegade scores for your own benefit and stuff like that, so that's kind of cool. But then you also have the things that people were complaining about, and the first of these was the multiplayer. The multiplayer is your standard Horde mode, only it's 4-player co-op. You get to choose your classes, you level up those classes, you give them powers just like in the single player, except that they're just not Shepherd. And they're more limited in their abilities. So that's kind of cool. By standard Horde mode, I mean, it's basically you fight off waves of enemies, and in this one, though, there's a twist of they'll put in different objectives that you have to complete as a team while you're doing these waves and such, and it actually works out pretty well, to be honest with you. The multiplayer is surprisingly fun if you have a team who knows what they're doing. The problem I've had with it is that nobody communicates, so I mean, literally, you will hear nothing. No voice chat whatsoever. That's the only chat you get in this game for some weird reason. But you'll hear nothing over the voice chat, and as a result, you'll be like, well, guys, where are you? Why are you on the other end of the map? Oh, God, I'm going to get annihilated. And stuff like that. That happens all the time, and it's kind of interesting. You can revive your fallen comrades and stuff like that. So that's kind of cool. Oh, one thing I forgot to mention earlier for the combat system, you actually have to use Medigel to heal yourself now. So instead of just letting yourself heal, that doesn't work. You actually have to replenish your health through Medigel this time around. This doesn't happen in the multiplayer. It just replenishes at the end of a wave. But the multiplayer's main problem is that it's a little bit laggy, and it has matchmaking and peer-to-peer. That's really it. It does affect the single player, though, and they basically did this by adding in a galactic readiness counter. And each time you basically play through the multiplayer, it gives you a certain percentage of galactic readiness, and it depends on where you decide to do it. If you do it at an unknown location, it does it for every single part of the galaxy. If you do it for one particular part of the galaxy, it'll increase that one a little bit more than it would for the entire galaxy. To unlock new equipment and stuff in the multiplayer, you actually get credits through just playing the game, or you can buy not Microsoft points, BioWare points to purchase packs. There are 3 packs available: Recruit, Veteran, and Spectre. And each of these contains different items, and some of these will be weapons, some of them are just boosts, special weapons that you'll be able to use throughout the multiplayer experience, that sort of thing. And it actually works out surprisingly well. The problem I have with it is because it's randomly generated, I'm still stuck with the assault rifle I started with. And that's annoying because that thing is a piece of crap. So, yeah. But anyway, apart from that, multiplayer is actually surprisingly fun. I can see it would be better with friends, but it's surprisingly fun as is. But then you have the story. The story is, well, all over the place. On the one hand, it starts out very, very slowly, and just after about 2 hours or so, picks up dramatically and just builds up and builds up and builds up and just doesn't stop building up until the end. And this build-up is awesome. Shepard uniting the galaxy to fight the Reapers. I mean, and the entire time you are sitting there watching these cities and stuff be blasted by Reapers. You're witnessing the effects of indoctrination and all that kind of stuff. It's actually really cool to see all this stuff. there are moments in this game where you just sit there and you get, like, they are depressing, and it's meant to be. I mean, the galaxy's basically coming to an end. So it's actually pretty cool to see all this stuff happen. You can continue our romance from the previous 2 games, and they did that surprisingly well. Like, for instance, if you romance somebody in Mass Effect 1, you can continue that. Mass Effect 2, you continue that. If you did it in Mass Effect 1 and 2, just did somebody different each time, then you actually get to choose who you want to stay with in the 3rd one, so that's kind of cool. But anyway, what really bothered me about the storyline was you have Mass Effect 1 and 2, which were very complete experiences, but just kind of leading up to the events of Mass Effect 3. Then you have Mass Effect 3. Awesome build-up. Horrendously awful endings. You get a choice between 3 endings in this game. Each of them leaves you bewildered. And by bewildered, I mean you're sitting there like, what happened? Wait, what happened to the galaxy? What happened to all the people I've traveled with? What? What? How does it... What? It certainly ends the Shepard arc. Problem is, it does it in a way that offers zero closure, explains nothing, and does it in a convoluted, stupid way. And that actually ruins the game. That one little part of this game. Because, keep in mind, I have said basically nothing bad about this game so far. All the stuff that leading up to this point in this review, I've been praising this game. I liked a lot of this game. I love the build-up. I love the gameplay. But then you have the problem of the ending, and it ruined the game. Completely. Just butchered it. And that's enough. That is enough to bring the score down from what probably would have been a 4.5 to a 2. Thanks for watching.